Milsap. His childhood was anything but perfect. Born nearly completely blind in 1943, Ronnie would be abandoned by his mom, who saw his blindness as a curse from God. Ronnie would go on to be raised by his grandparents in the Smoky Mountains until he was 5, when they took him to the Governor Moorhead School for the Blind in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he managed to develop a passion for music. He would go on to receive a full college scholarship from the Young Harris College in Young Harris, Georgia, where he planned to pursue a law career. But the music inside could not be denied. Ronnie, 40 #1 hits. The Country Music Association named him Male Vocal 1972. I had the opportunity to sit down with my longtime friend, and we talked about his journey from abuse as a child to the Country Music Hall of Fame. And true to the endearing man he is, did nothing but forgiveness toward it to the opportunities he's been given.
From historic Studio A at the Grand Ole Opry House, Bill Cody presenting Ronnie Milsap. This is a historic room as famous as the Opry. Isn't this where we're starting our conversation? Hee Haw was filmed in here at one point in time. Do you remember doing Hee Haw?
I do, but I remember Jack Johnson said, Milsap, we're gonna do Hee Haw. And I said, well, let's go.
When you were born, let's go back to the beginning and tell that story. As a child in North Carolina, did you have vision at all?
A little. I could see light. I could see
that
no vision.
So what are you, let me ask you this way, what are you seeing when you do that?
I hear what bounces back in here, and you get some bounce back. That'll tell you what all you need to know.
Your mother took you to your grandparents when you were 1 year and 1 day old.
Yeah, my mother did not want me because I was a blind child.
It had to do with her, I won't say faith, but her religious belief?
She thought that this disaster in diapers, if somebody just take it away, take God's punishment away. So my daddy actually took me over to my grandparents' house, and living with them was just perfect. They cared, they took care of me, they had a radio in the house.
That was your connection to the outside world?
It was. I listened to it all the time.
So as I think about your mom and that story, as heartbreaking as that is, you wind up, you talked about how loving your grandparents were. What I find remarkable about that story is that your grandmother was biological, but your grandfather, whom you just adored, was a step-grandfather. He was not blood related.
But he was a wonderful man.
His name was Homer?
Yeah, Homer Frisbee.
And your grandmother's name?
Phenia Colvin.
Did you realize at 6 that things were about to change? Did they talk to you?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I'd heard that I was going to school. Then I heard people say, well, can he learn?
Learn. North Carolina owner, can he learn anything?
Can he learn anything? So I got to school September the 6th, 1949. I was 6 years old. It broke my heart. I wasn't around my grandparents anymore.
Because they took you to the Governor Moorhead School, right?
They sure did.
And it was for the blind.
It's for the blind. Back then it was called the North Carolina State School for the Blind. A good school. And the teachers were just incredible.
So when does the interest in music come?
I was called to go in and study violin when I was 7. Then the next year I was thrown into piano lessons. I learned on the piano Braille music. But I remember in 1952, I was 8, and I was in my piano teacher in studying piano, and I sit there and play Down Yonder by Del Wood.
Oh, my goodness. And that's been played on the Grand Ole Opry stage.
Yeah.
Just out front of where we sit right now.
Yeah.
Many times by the legendary Del Wood.
I love that song, and I played it, and she said, so you play by ear? I said, yeah. I hear things on the radio, and I can emulate it, so I got a million songs in my head.
All right, so as we move forward musically, you're really picking it up while you're at the Moorhead School.
Yeah.
Academically, you have prowess, because later on, you have a chance to go to law school.
I sure did, and...
So tell me about these parallel paths of music and academics and the fact that you had strengths in both.
No, if cop or not, but I thought I was going to pay for it, I may as well go. So my grandfather had moved over to Hayesville, North Carolina. So there was a college over there in Georgia named Young Harris. And I went there.
Playing music all the time?
Well, I wasn't. But my roommate said, I'm going to do some laundry. You want to go with me? And I said, yeah, sure. Rec room, I said, what all's in here? He said, ping pong tables. Oh, yeah, there's a piano over there in the corner. The piano. So when he came back from doing, I was in there playing songs for everybody. Room was packed, singing Lonely Teardrops, okay, for them up. They couldn't believe I'm just sitting there at the piano and singing every year.
Still playing by ear.
And this guy, his rooming next door to me in dormitory in college, he said, this band, we're playing the Civic Center in Gainesville, Georgia. Kid, would you go down there and sing? And sang that Friday night. And the guy that ran the band said, I'm going to come pick you for Friday. And we're going to go play the college circuit.
Now you're in show business, baby.
You're in there.
When you tell him you're thinking about the innocence of it.
Charles Joyce and I were big Ray Charles fans. Then I wanted to go backstage and meet him. He said, Ronald, you got a great record out there.
So he knew your song?
Yeah, I never had it so good. He said, but what I like is that B-side, Let's Go Get Stoned. Matter of fact, I like that so much, I think I'm going to cut it myself.
How did it go?
I said, uh-oh, we thought we were just going to flip, maybe have another hit. But Ray cut it, and boy, Ray did a good job on it.
But that night, was that the night he says to you, when you tell him you're thinking about going into law?
Yeah.
What does he tell you?
He said, no, don't do that. Go into something that you love. Go into something where you really won't have to work. I mean, you love it so much, don't have to work. Just go do it. They said, that's where your heart is anyway, in music. So let that lead you where you're going.
Follow your heart.
And it'll happen. Follow your heart. Ray Charles. So I signed the contract with Jack Johnson. He said, now, Ron, I can't make you.
1976.
Boy.
Take me back.
Well, I was out in the hall, and Roy Acuff asked me, he said, Ronnie, do you drink? And I said, no, sir. He said, all right, you can become a member of the Opry then. What if I'd said, yeah, a little bit every now and then? He'd probably said, well, come on back here, let's have some good old Tennessee whiskey.
What you ready to say? Were you telling him the truth?
Yeah, I was telling the truth, but I can go either way.
Now, at 78, that it didn't necessarily mean to you when you were 33 years old.
Well, it still means kind of the same thing, Bill, because I grew up on the Opry like all of us did. I think to be a member of the Opry, I mean, that's as good as it gets.
Who were your favorites as a kid over there in Western North Carolina? You talked about listening to Grand Ole Opry coming up. Who were those people you said, oh my goodness, if only one day?
If only one day I could meet Jim Reeves. He was my favorite.